Dr. Blue stood at the main viewing window of the research vessel, his four eyes fixed on the blue-green planet below. Earth looked peaceful from orbit, spinning slowly in the black void of space. The senior researcher's gray skin reflected the soft glow of the ship's instruments as he turned to address his team. "Initial scans complete," announced Dr. Gray, his junior assistant, studying the holographic displays floating before him. Atmosphere, nitrogen-oxygen mix. Average temperature, within habitable range. Dominant species, bipedal mammals. He paused, mandibles clicking in what passed for a frown among their kind. Nothing remarkable. The Galactic Research Institute had sent them to study Earth as part of their ongoing mission to classify all intelligent species in the galaxy. It was routine work. Arrive, observe, collect samples, run tests, and leave. They had done this 100 times before on 100 different worlds. Preliminary classification, Dr. Blue asked, already knowing the answer. Class C species, Dr. Gray replied, his secondary arms inputting data into the ship's computer. They show basic tool use, primitive space exploration, and standard physical capabilities. Nothing to suggest they deserve a higher rating. Dr. Blue nodded, his head crest rising slightly in acknowledgement. The Class C rating was exactly what they had expected. It meant humans were considered a developing species, not yet ready for full integration into galactic society. They would be studied, catalogued, and left alone to develop further. Begin selection process for detailed testing, Dr. Blue ordered. Standard protocol. 3 subjects, different regions, varied occupations. Use the neural scanner to find suitable candidates. The ship's advanced systems began scanning the planet's population, looking for ideal test subjects. The selection criteria were strict. Healthy adults, no dependent offspring, isolated locations for easy extraction. The computer's artificial intelligence processed millions of potential candidates in seconds. First subject identified, announced Dr. Red, the team's extraction specialist. Male, age 32, occupation, farmer, lives alone on an isolated property. Minimal risk of detection. The holographic display showed a man working in his fields as the sun set. Second subject located, Dr. Red continued. Female, age 28, occupation, factory worker. Night shift employee, walks home alone. Easy extraction point identified. The display shifted to show a woman in work clothes, carrying a bag over her shoulder. Third subject found. Male, age 35, occupation, office clerk. Lives alone, works late hours. Suitable for extraction during his evening routine. The final image showed a man sitting at a desk, surrounded by papers and computers. Dr. Blue studied each candidate carefully. They seemed perfectly ordinary, exactly what he expected from a Class C species. Proceed with extraction. Standard memory modification protocols in place. I want all 3 subjects in our testing facilities within the next planetary rotation. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Their ship, hidden by advanced cloaking technology, positioned itself over each extraction point. The subjects were lifted from their locations using targeted gravity beams, their disappearances masked by carefully crafted illusions that would leave no witnesses and no evidence. As the third subject arrived in the ship's holding area, Dr. Blue allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The procedure had gone flawlessly, as usual. The humans were unconscious, their minds already being prepared for testing through the ship's neural interfaces. Begin basic physical assessment, he ordered. I want baseline readings before we start the standard trials. As his team bustled around him, preparing equipment and monitoring vital signs, Dr. Blue felt the familiar excitement of scientific discovery. Even with a Class C species, there was always something new to learn, some small detail that could add to the Institute's vast database of knowledge. Little did he know that these 3 ordinary humans were about to change everything he thought he knew about species classification. The real surprise was still to come. hidden in the test results that would soon turn the galaxy's understanding of humanity upside down. But for now, Dr. Blue simply watched as his team worked, confident in their methods, secure in their assumptions, and completely unaware of just how wrong they all were. The testing chamber hummed with energy as Dr. Blue watched the first subject, the farmer, run on what looked like a simple treadmill. In reality, the machine was an advanced device that could simulate various gravity conditions and environmental stresses. The farmer had been running for 2 hours straight. He should have stopped by now, Dr. Gray muttered, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the readings. Class C species typically exhaust themselves after 40 minutes at this intensity. The farmer kept running, sweat dripping down his face, but showing no signs of stopping. His heart rate was elevated but stable, his breathing regular and controlled. The aliens had expected him to collapse after the first hour. Perhaps we should increase the difficulty, Dr. Red suggested from her monitoring station. Standard Class C testing protocols clearly aren't providing useful data. Dr. Blue nodded. Increase gravity by 10%. Add environmental resistance. The farmer noticed the change immediately. His steps became heavier, the air thicker. But instead of slowing down, he adjusted his posture and kept going. The alien scientists exchanged worried looks. In the second testing chamber, the factory worker was demonstrating equally puzzling results. She had been given what the aliens considered a simple task: lift and sort objects of increasing weight. The test was designed to find the subject's physical limits. She's exceeded the predicted maximum capacity by 40%, Dr. Gray reported, his voice carrying a note of confusion. And look at her technique. She's adapting to the weight increases, changing her lifting method to maintain efficiency. Dr. Blue moved closer to the observation window. The factory worker was covered in sweat, but showed no signs of strain as she lifted objects that, according to their calculations, should have been impossible for her to move. Check the gravity controls, he ordered. These results can't be correct. All systems functioning normally, Dr. Red confirmed. The data is accurate. These humans are simply stronger than we expected. The third testing chamber held perhaps the most surprising results. The office clerk sat in front of a neural interface, solving complex problems that grew progressively harder. According to their species classification guidelines, he should have reached his limit hours ago. Mental fatigue index is barely registering, Dr. Gray reported, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. He's not just solving the problems. He's recognizing patterns and developing shortcuts. This is Class V level cognitive adaptation at minimum. Dr. Blue felt his head crest flatten in concern. One unusual result could be dismissed as an anomaly. 2 might be explained as a coincidence, but 3 subjects, all showing capabilities far beyond their species classification. Something was very wrong. Run a full diagnostic on all testing equipment, he ordered. Check calibration on all sensors. Review the baseline data. As his team scrambled to verify their equipment, Dr. Blue watched the 3 humans continue their tests. The farmer was still running, now at higher gravity than before. The factory worker had moved on to testing grip strength, her results off the charts. The office clerk had begun solving mathematical equations that should have been beyond his comprehension. Dr. Blue, Dr. Gray called out, his voice tight with concern. The equipment checks are complete. Everything is functioning perfectly. These results, they're real. The lead researcher stood in silence, watching the humans perform what his training told him should be impossible. Years of experience, countless species studied, all his preconceptions about Class C capabilities. Everything was being challenged by what he saw before him. Continue the tests, he finally said, but upgrade the protocols. Let's see just how far these humans can go. As he turned to leave the observation room, Dr. Blue felt something he hadn't experienced in many years of scientific research: doubt. If these were the results from simple physical tests, what would they discover when they began the advanced trials? The answer, though he didn't know it yet, would shake the foundations of galactic science. Increase to Class B testing protocols, Dr. Blue ordered, his voice firm despite his inner uncertainty. The observation room fell silent as his team processed the command. Moving test subjects up an entire classification level was almost unheard of. "Sir," Dr. Gray started, his secondary arms twitching nervously. Class B protocols could seriously harm Class C subjects. "These are clearly not typical Class C subjects," Dr. Blue responded, watching the 3 humans through the observation windows. "Proceed with the upgrade." In the first chamber, the farmer faced his new challenge. The testing floor had been converted into a simulated agricultural environment, but with triple Earth's normal gravity. Most species would be crushed by such conditions. The farmer stumbled at first, his legs shaking under the intense pressure. Subject 1 showing signs of stress, Dr. Red reported, muscle strain reaching critical levels. But then something unexpected happened. The farmer didn't collapse. Instead, he began to adapt. His movements became more efficient, his body adjusting to the crushing gravity. Within an hour, he was not just surviving. He was working. "Impossible," Dr. Gray whispered, all 4 eyes fixed on the readings. "His bone density is actually increasing. His muscles are strengthening under pressure." In the second chamber, the factory worker faced an entirely different challenge. The room had been filled with complex machinery that even Class B species typically needed special training to operate. The aliens watched in amazement as she began to figure it out through pure trial and error. "Look at her problem-solving approach," Dr. Red said, mandibles clicking in excitement. "She's not just learning the controls, she's improving the process. She's found 3 shortcuts we didn't even know existed." Dr. Blue moved closer to the screen showing her test results. The factory worker had begun humming to herself, seemingly enjoying the challenge. Her stress levels were elevated but nowhere near what they should have been for such a complex task. The office clerk's test had been upgraded to include advanced pattern recognition and crisis management scenarios. The neural interface was now feeding him problems that would challenge most Class B scientists. "Sir," one of the junior researchers called out, "Subject 3 has just solved the Krillian paradox." "What?" Dr. Blue rushed to the monitoring station. The Krillian paradox was a complex mathematical problem that had been included as a control, something impossible for the subject to solve. Yet there it was, the solution displayed clearly on the screen. "He didn't just solve it," Dr. Gray added, his voice filled with disbelief. "He found a simpler way to solve it. He made it better." Dr. Blue felt his head crest rise fully, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. These humans weren't just passing Class B tests. They were excelling at them, and more disturbing still, they were improving with each passing hour. "New data from Subject 1, Dr. Red announced. "The farmer's muscle density has increased by 12% since the gravity increase. He's not just adapting. He's getting stronger." Subject 2 has optimized the entire manufacturing sequence, another researcher reported. "Efficiency increased by 40% over our best models." Subject 3 is requesting more complex problems, came another report. "He says these are becoming too easy." Dr. Blue stood in the center of the observation room, watching all 3 humans continue to shatter every preconception his species had about them. This wasn't just unexpected, it was revolutionary. No species had ever demonstrated this level of rapid adaptation and improvement. "Contact the Galactic Research Institute," he ordered finally. "Mark the message as highest priority. We need to convene an emergency classification board." He paused, watching the humans continue their incredible performance, "and upgrade the containment protocols. I have a feeling we haven't seen anything yet." As his team rushed to comply with his orders, Dr. Blue couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto something that would change galactic society forever. Humans weren't just strong, they were getting stronger. They weren't just smart, they were getting smarter. And they were only just beginning to show their true potential. The ship's main laboratory buzzed with activity as Dr. Blue stared at the holographic display of human neural patterns. He had been studying them for hours, and what he saw defied everything he thought he knew about biology. "Run the pain response test again," he ordered, his 4 eyes never leaving the display. The computer compiled the data from all 3 subjects, showing their nervous system responses to various stresses. "Look at this," Dr. Gray said, pointing to a particular pattern with one of his secondary arms. "When we increase the difficulty of their tasks, their pain threshold doesn't just hold steady, it rises. They're actually getting stronger because of the pain." Dr. Red approached with a new set of data crystals. "Physical analysis complete, sir. You need to see this." She inserted the crystals into the display unit, and new images appeared alongside the neural patterns. "They're muscle fibers," Dr. Blue muttered, leaning closer. "They're changing." "Not just changing," Dr. Red corrected. "They're adapting. Every time we increase the difficulty, their bodies don't just resist, they rebuild themselves to be better. The farmer's muscle density has increased by 20% since we started. The factory worker's reflexes are 30% faster. And the office clerk's neural pathways are forming new connections at an unprecedented rate." Dr. Blue's head crest rose in excitement. "Show me the endocrine analysis." The display shifted to show complex chemical patterns flowing through human bloodstreams. Dr. Gray manipulated the controls, highlighting specific compounds. "We thought these were stress responses at first," he explained. "But they're not just stress hormones. These compounds, they're like nothing we've seen before. When humans face a challenge, their bodies don't just react, they transform." "That's not possible," one of the junior researchers protested. "Species don't just change their biological functions on demand. Humans do," Dr. Blue said quietly. "Look at their recovery patterns." The display changed again, showing healing rates and tissue regeneration. After each test, the humans weren't just returning to their baseline. They were coming back stronger. "Sir," a technician called from across the lab, "the genetic analysis is complete." The results appeared on the main screen, and the room fell silent. Human DNA contained something unprecedented, built-in adaptation protocols that activated under stress. Every challenge they faced literally rewrote their bodies to handle it better next time. "They're not just surviving our tests," Dr. Blue realized. "They're using them to evolve, right before our eyes." Dr. Gray's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "Doctor, there's more. Look at their brain chemistry during problem-solving tasks." The display shifted once more, showing neural activity during various tests. The patterns were unlike anything in the galactic database. When faced with a problem, human brains didn't just process information, they reconfigured themselves to process it better. "They're not just learning," Dr. Red whispered. "They're teaching themselves how to learn better." Dr. Blue stepped back from the display, his mind racing. In all his years of xenobiology research, he had never seen anything like this. Humans weren't just another species to be classified. They were an evolutionary phenomenon. "Contact the Institute immediately," he ordered. "Mark it as a Priority 1 discovery. We need every expert available to analyze this data." As his team rushed to comply, Dr. Blue turned back to the observation windows. The 3 humans were still at their tests, still improving, still breaking through what should have been impossible barriers. "All this time," he mused, "we thought we were testing them. But really, we were just giving them opportunities to show us what they could become." The implications were staggering. If humans could adapt this quickly in controlled tests, what were they capable of under real pressure? What would they become if truly challenged? For the first time in his career, Dr. Blue felt something beyond scientific curiosity. He felt fear, not of what humans were, but of what they were becoming. And they were still getting stronger. The emergency alarm blared through the research vessel, its purple warning lights casting strange shadows across Dr. Blue's face. He rushed into the main communication chamber, where dozens of holographic projections showed other research ships stationed around Earth. "Report," he commanded, taking his place at the center of the room. "Station 7 reports identical findings," Dr. Gray announced, his secondary arms working rapidly across multiple control panels. "Their human test subjects are showing the same adaptation patterns as ours. Station 12, Station 3, and Station 9 all confirm similar results." Dr. Red burst into the chamber, holding a data crystal. "Sir, you need to see this immediately. Station 4 just lost containment of their test subject." The main display activated, showing footage from another research vessel. A human test subject, a young construction worker, had not just adapted to the physical tests, but had grown strong enough to break through the containment field. It took 15 security officers to safely return him to stasis. "How is this possible?" one of the junior researchers asked, their voice shaking. "The containment fields are designed to hold Class A species. The Galactic Research Institute is demanding immediate answers," Dr. Gray reported. "They're receiving similar reports from every Earth observation post. This isn't isolated. It's happening everywhere." Dr. Blue watched as more data poured in from other stations. Every single human test subject was showing the same patterns: rapid adaptation, increasing strength, accelerating learning curves. But each was developing in slightly different ways, based on the specific tests they were experiencing. "Show me the latest readings from our subjects," he ordered. The display split into 3 sections. The farmer was now working comfortably in 4 times Earth's gravity, his muscles visibly denser than when they started. The factory worker had completely redesigned the test machinery, making improvements that the aliens' best engineers were struggling to understand. The office clerk had developed new mathematical theories while solving the test problems. "Sir," Dr. Red called out, "Station 15 reports their subject is showing signs of telepathic development." The room fell silent. Developing new abilities during testing was unprecedented. Species simply didn't evolve new traits in a matter of days. It defied everything they knew about biology. "The Institute is convening an emergency session," Dr. Gray announced. "All research stations are ordered to increase security protocols to maximum level." Suddenly, alarms began blaring from their own testing chambers. Dr. Blue rushed to the observation windows, his head crest fully extended in alarm. The farmer had noticed the increased security measures and was watching the force field with unusual interest. The factory worker had stopped working on the machinery and was studying the chamber's control panels. The office clerk had turned away from his tests and was staring directly at the observation window, even though it was supposed to be invisible from his side. "They're becoming aware," Dr. Blue realized. "They're not just adapting physically, they're beginning to understand their situation." "Sir," a technician called out, "brain activity in all 3 subjects is showing synchronized patterns. They're not in direct contact, but somehow they're connecting," Dr. Blue finished. "Somehow, they're finding ways to communicate." The emergency lights continued to flash as more reports flooded in from other stations. Some reported their subjects were showing signs of energy manipulation. Others described instances of accelerated healing. One station claimed their subject had started predicting future test sequences with perfect accuracy. "Send priority message to the Institute," Dr. Blue ordered. "Humans are not evolving according to any known patterns. They are actively adapting to overcome any limitation we place on them. The more we test them, the stronger they become." As his team rushed to comply, Dr. Blue watched the 3 humans in their chambers. They were all still now, perfectly still, as if waiting for something. He had a disturbing feeling that they weren't just subjects anymore. They were becoming something entirely new, and they were watching their watchers. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Species Classification Board had never been this crowded. Representatives from every major research station orbiting Earth had gathered, their various alien forms filling the circular room with a rainbow of colors and shapes. Dr. Blue stood at the center platform, his data crystals projecting massive holograms of human test results above the assembly. Distinguished members of the board, he began, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. What we have discovered about humans requires immediate action. They cannot remain classified as a Class C species. In fact, they may need an entirely new classification. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Creating a new species classification hadn't happened in over 10,000 years. "Show us your evidence," demanded the board president, a tall, crystalline being whose transparent body sparkled with internal light. Dr. Blue activated the first series of recordings. The chamber watched in silence as humans from different research stations demonstrated their extraordinary abilities. The farmer working in crushing gravity, the factory worker revolutionizing alien technology, the office clerk solving impossible equations. These adaptations occurred within days, Dr. Blue explained. Not over generations, days. Impossible, one board member shouted. No species can evolve that quickly. Humans can. Dr. Red stepped forward, carrying new data crystals. And that's not all. We've documented 47 cases of humans developing completely new abilities during testing. Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, increased intelligence, and even early signs of energy manipulation. The chamber erupted in chaos. Board members argued loudly, some demanding to see more evidence, others calling for immediate quarantine of Earth. The president raised all four of their arms, calling for silence. "Dr. Blue," they said, "what are you suggesting?" "Humans must be reclassified as a Class A potential species immediately," he replied. "But more than that, we need to recognize them as something we've never seen before. They're not just powerful. They're adaptable in ways we thought were impossible." The holograms change, showing human DNA structures. Their genetic code contains adaptation protocols that activate under stress. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every test makes them smarter. Every limit we place on them becomes a new ability waiting to be unlocked. "Are you suggesting," another board member asked, their tentacles waving in agitation, "that humans are still evolving?" "Right now. Not just evolving," Dr. Gray added, stepping up beside Dr. Blue. "They're evolving deliberately. They're becoming whatever they need to be to overcome their challenges. And they're doing it faster than any species we've ever encountered." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that could adapt at will, that grew stronger from every challenge, that could potentially develop any ability they needed. It was unprecedented. "There's more," Dr. Blue continued. "We've detected signs of collective adaptation. When one human develops a new ability, others seem to develop it more quickly afterward. They're not just individually adaptable, they're collectively evolving." The president's crystalline form flickered with internal light, a sign of deep concern. "Your recommendation, Doctor?" "We need to completely revise our approach to Earth," Dr. Blue said firmly. "Humans aren't just another species to study and classify. They're a galactic game changer. Every moment we spend testing them, they're learning, adapting, becoming stronger, and now they're becoming aware of us." The chamber erupted again, but this time in fear rather than disbelief. The president raised their arms once more. "The board will recess to consider this evidence," they announced. "But first, Dr. Blue, one final question. In your professional opinion, what are humans truly capable of becoming?" Dr. Blue looked up at the holograms, at the data showing human potential, at the recordings of their incredible adaptations. "That's what terrifies me," he answered honestly. "I don't think even they know yet, but I believe we're about to find out." Dr. Blue stood in the memory modification chamber, watching as his team prepared the 3 human subjects for their return to Earth. The farmer lay peacefully in his stasis pod, looking ordinary once again, though the doctor knew better now. The factory worker and office clerk were in similar pods nearby, their extraordinary achievements during testing soon to be hidden behind carefully crafted false memories. "Memory modification protocols ready," Dr. Gray reported, but his voice carried an unusual note of uncertainty. "Though, sir, are we sure this will work?" given what we now know about their adaptability. It was a valid concern. The past week had changed everything they thought they knew about humans. The Galactic Species Classification Board had created an entirely new category just for them. Class X, Adaptive Potential Species. Proceed with the protocol, Dr. Blue ordered, but add extra monitoring tags. I want to know if they start to remember. As the memory modification began, Dr. Red approached with the final report for the Galactic Research Institute. All research stations have completed their subject returns, she said, but we're getting strange readings from some of the earlier test sites. What kind of readings? Some returned subjects are showing increased abilities, even with modified memories. A former test subject from Station 7 broke their planet's athletic records. Another from Station 3 made breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics. It's as if their bodies remember what their minds forgot. Dr. Blue's head crest rose slightly. Even now, humans were surprising them. The memory modifications might hide the truth, but the physical changes, the adaptations, the improvements, those remained. Final subject status, he asked, watching the procedure. The farmer's muscle density has permanently increased by 40%. The factory worker's problem-solving abilities now match our best computers. The office clerk, Dr. Gray paused, checking his readings. His neural patterns are still evolving, even in stasis. The memory modification completed, and the team began preparing the subjects for return. Each would be placed back exactly where they were taken, with artificial memories of ordinary days filling the gap. New directive from the Institute, Dr. Red announced, reading from a glowing tablet. All Earth observation posts are being upgraded. We're to establish permanent monitoring stations, disguised as orbital debris. Full stealth protocols. They're afraid, Dr. Blue realized. The board isn't just interested in studying humans anymore. They're worried about what humans might become. As the return preparations continued, Dr. Blue reviewed the final data one last time. Something caught his eye in the neural recordings from the last day of testing. He enhanced the image, his 4 eyes widening in surprise. Dr. Gray, he called out urgently, look at this pattern. It's from just before we announced the end of testing. The neural scan showed unusual activity, patterns that suggested awareness, understanding, and something else, something that looked almost like amusement. Run a deep scan on their brainwave patterns during the entire testing period, he ordered suddenly. Compare it to our first readings. The results appeared on the main screen, and the room fell silent. The patterns showed a clear progression, not just of adaptation and improvement, but of comprehension. By the final days, the subjects hadn't just been taking the tests. They had been studying their testers. They knew, Dr. Blue whispered. Maybe not consciously, but on some level. They knew what we were doing, and they were learning about us while we thought we were learning about them. The return sequence began. One by one, the subjects vanished from their pods, transported back to their ordinary lives on Earth. But as Dr. Blue watched them go, he couldn't shake the feeling that nothing about humans would ever be ordinary again. Send final transmission to the Institute, he ordered. Message reads, human study complete, but I strongly suspect they were studying us too. As the research vessel prepared to leave Earth's orbit, its cloaking shields at maximum power, Dr. Blue took one last look at the blue-green planet below. Somewhere down there, humans were going about their lives, unaware of their true potential, yet growing stronger every day. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that had been their plan all along.